It says recording now.
Okay, hello and welcome to a new edition of Interview with Irene. Today my guest is the lovely Tori Ridgewood. Thank you for joining us, Tori, and welcome. And she will be talking to us about the writing process. So again, welcome and thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, of course, excited for this one. And excited that you're my first interview in this new year.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Um, so how about we start by you telling us how you began writing?
Well, I don't think there was ever a time when I wasn't writing. My mother kept a few pieces of things that I wrote when I was very small, when I had learned how to print. So short stories and poems and eventually longer stories, they've just always been around. And I keep coming across them when I open old boxes and go into filing cabinets and things. They're just always there. Um, when I was an adolescent, like 10, 11, 12 years old, I discovered that I loved grossing my friends out with horror stories. And I would write them for class assignments. And, but my main issue was that I had a hard time finishing anything. I could start and start and start, but actually completing a narrative seemed to be a huge stumbling block up until the last 15 years or so. Because I would fall into the trap of, oh, this is a great idea. Oh, this is another great idea. So I have I have files upon files of great ideas and few things that I actually finished. Um, and it wasn't until I was on parental leave with my daughter, my second child, that I was able to really plug away at something that had substance beyond an idea. I started writing my first novel while I was on leave with her, but it took me 6 years to complete it, and a seventh year to shop it around. And in the middle of that, I wrote a novella to answer questions that came up in the actual novel. Um, and I discovered that process as well, that when you're writing something and exploring it, no matter how well you think you know it's going to be, the characters will surprise you, the plot will shift on you. I call it off-roading. And so being able to expand a world is something that I learned the hard way. Um, but it was good. It was a really good experience. And writing the novella, the short one, it gave me the courage to finish the long one. And being able to finish that first book of the series, the trilogy, um, that was really empowering, and that enabled me to go and do the next one and the next one. So I I felt a lot stronger and more confident. And the next one that I wrote was for youth, because I'm a high school teacher by trade. I had a number of secondary boys who didn't want to read, couldn't find anything of interest. So I wrote them a story about snowmobiling, getting lost in the woods and injured and trying to find their way out. And with that one, I learned about self-publishing, and I was able to take that knowledge to the writer's craft classes that I teach. Um, and then after that, I haven't written anything brand new, but my latest is an anthology of short pieces. Um, Partly because I really wanted to have something new to release last year when I went to a convention, and partly because I needed to review what I've done to get myself back in the writing gear, because I spent 2 years doing a lot of nonfiction. I spent 2 years working on a degree, and that was a lot of essays and reports. I'm ready to get back into fiction again.
Right, that was my experience. Like, right after I finished my dissertation, I needed to write the fiction.
Yes.
So I know. So you mentioned your anthology. Could you maybe talk about some stories in that
Sure.
anthology?
It's called Leave the Lights On. I pulled a copy off the shelf.
Ah,
I love this cover. My son helped me Photoshop the cover. And it I say that it's an adult horror anthology because there are a few steamy stories. There's a couple of things that involve um, twists and turns that I would hope that someone wouldn't expect. Um, so, for example, there's a woman on a date, and one of them on the date is a vampire, but
Uh-oh.
the question is which one, right? And how do we know? And then there's a short story about somebody doing an advertisement with a dragon, and it gets pretty graphic. I wrote that one for a competition. It didn't make it very far, but I thought it was cute, so I included that one. One of my favorites is about a woman who goes to get a tattoo of her dead lover's face, and she goes to a questionable place, and over time, as the tattoo grows, she starts to feel release, but also more and more disturbed. And by the end, the tattoo isn't just a tattoo anymore. It's a face that speaks to her. And that one's I like that one because it's creepy. I explore being a shapeshifter, being a werewolf. There's also an exploration of somebody going on a vacation, getting trapped between the glass doors of a school during a snowstorm. Like, what would happen if the power went out and you couldn't get out and the snow keeps climbing?
Oh my
It's all pretty dark, which is why you leave the lights on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I leave my lights on tonight. Yeah. So,
And I one thing I want to point out is it's very small. Like, it's not your typical, it's purse size, because my friends suggested to me, if you're going to self-publish, because I needed to get it done quickly, make something that they could keep in their purse to read when they're waiting for someone, if they're waiting to get picked up or whatever. So that's what I did. And this one's really special to me because I designed it with, between each story is a black page. And in the very, very corner at the bottom, you won't be able to pick it up on camera because it's so faint, but there's a little image. It's just right down here in every corner. There's an image that suits every story. And it's just faintly there because I wanted it to be something where you're not quite sure what you're seeing. It kind of feeds the artistic part of me. This one, there's a little tiny, I don't know if you can see that, there's a little lantern on the page.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We can see that, yeah. So, other than promoting the anthology, do you have any other goals for 2020?
Well, I would like to get back to promoting the series, the Talbot trilogy, because I do love that. I have a project I started in, oh my goodness, I think it was 2015. It's a creepy dollhouse expository novel. Not expository. Oh, what's the word for it? It's on the tip of my tongue. It's a work where the story is told through letters, diary entries, first-person accounts that are like newspaper reports, things like that, in the style of World War Z. And to my mind, there's a dollhouse that has been built out of the wood reclaimed from a used coffin, and therefore it is a haunted object. And terrible things happen whenever this dollhouse is in contact with people. And I want to explore that. I love dollhouses. I love miniatures. I love ghosts. I love all things paranormal. And I just think that this would be really interesting to follow the progress of this. So I have some preliminary research and I have some bits and pieces. But when I was doing my degree, I had to put it all aside to focus on that. So it would be nice to get back into this one. Epistolary, that's what it's called. Epistolary novel. Got it. And in my head also, I really want to challenge myself with it because I feel like as I was writing some of the pieces, it started to be a mix of paranormal and the world of the fae, the world of fairies and supernatural creatures. And what if the story is told not just through the narrative as found in the diaries and the letters and all those things, but what if I flip the thing upside down so that you're reading it on the other side and it's the story as being told through the eyes of the fae? And I'm kind of inspired by this wonderful episode of Supernatural where the story is told from the perspective of the car, the Impala. Love that. And also the Red Violin. Did you ever see that one?
I I
think it's
don't. I haven't really seen it, but I should look it up. The Red Violin.
I'm going to see if that's what it's called. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
It's an episode of Supernatural.
No, the Red Violin is it's a story about this extremely talented violin maker in the Restoration, like 17th century, who, upon the death of his wife, in his grief, he drains her blood and uses the blood as a stain for the violin. And it plays hauntingly beautiful music, but it becomes the stuff, it becomes the stuff of legend among collectors of antique instruments. And what's his name? Samuel, oh, hang on a second. I'm going to look it up because I want to get his name right. Samuel L. Jackson is in this movie. And he's amazing in it. But what gets me is that as his character, as Samuel L. Jackson's character is searching and looking to verify that the instrument in his possession is indeed this famous, mysterious, legendary red violin, we get flashes of the story of where the violin has been and how it has affected people and how it has changed lives and whose hands it's been in. And that's the kind of energy that I want to have for this dollhouse story. I want it to be something where it's just this, at first glance, an ordinary object, but it resonates with the energy of everyone it's come into contact with, and there's a reason for that. So I still really want to do that this year. That this would be a nice year to complete that project, and we're ready to go.
You're talking about the red violin brought chills down my arm. It's amazing. I need to look it up. So, yeah. Besides, so you mentioned you were working on your degree. What degree do you have?
I completed my master's. I did my my professional master of education. It's an education, with a focus on literacy.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Outside of writing and teaching, what do you like to do?
I'm really active in our local theater, and I'm part of I'm now chair of the board that is responsible for refurbishing, restoring, rehabilitating very old and classic theater in our community. It's one of the few remaining Art Deco streamlined theaters in North America. And it's a project that's close to my heart. I've been working with the board since 2014, and we're on the verge of very exciting things this year. It's a very slow process, very painstaking process of getting the appropriate funding. But while we work on the building, sometimes I act in the plays because I love performing, and sometimes I write for them, and sometimes I'm just there in the background helping to support, because part of the board's mandate is to have a company of players in the area as well to mentor the youth and the adults who have a call to theater in their blood. So a lot of my time when I'm not at school and I'm not at home, or even when I'm at home, is working on getting the theater up and running. It's not just about the stage presence. It's also, we want to bring movies back. This was the movie theater that the last theater showing films in Kirkland Lake, and which is where I live. Um, we took our kids to see their first movies in this theater, and it closed in 2012. Um, so there hasn't been commercial movie playing in our area. People have to drive an hour and a half to watch a movie, and it gets really frustrating, especially when I have a date night or a friend night or something like that. So some of our challenges include the washrooms need to be made accessible. They're very old. They're old design. They are not accessible, and they never were. The whole building needs to have a ramp put in for accessibility. We need to improve the wiring and the plumbing and the heating, but it has a new roof now. The lobby has been restored. The candy counter has been widened and restored, and we have a great consultant who's helping us with our process, and we're about to seek out engineers and architects who can help us with planning its next stages of development. So I'm heavily involved in that. That's my primary thing, and that takes a lot of time and energy.
But that's amazing. I can imagine it'll be very beautiful when it's completed. Of course. Is there any writer, past or present, that you would like to meet and why?
There are so many. There's so many I would love to meet. It's hard to narrow it down to one. I waver between Lucy Maud Montgomery and Neil Gaiman. And Maud Montgomery is close to my heart because Anne of Green Gables, The Story Girl, all of those books really fed my childhood, and they're beloved. Like I know that she went through struggles with depression, and I go through struggles with depression and anxiety. She went through disappointments in life, and yet she was resilient. She kept going. And I've been to a couple of her museums. I've read her autobiography. I just feel like she would be such a wonderful person to be able to sit down with and speak to, because her perspectives are ahead of their time.
Right.
Writing women and men and children far differently than her peers at the time. So it would be wonderful to sit with her. And then there's I always say it wrong, Neil Gaiman. I love his stuff. I just love his wit and his style. And I haven't read nearly enough that I would like to, because one thing I've discovered as an adult is you don't have the same amount of time to read as you do when you're a kid. So I have a massive pile of books that I'm needing to get through. But I recently bought myself a new copy of Good Omens because A, the show was coming out and I wanted to reread it to refresh, and B, I had loaned my copy to somebody and I hadn't gotten it back, and now I have it back, so now I have two copies. But that's another one that just carries me. I love that. And so, and others are like, to be able to sit with anybody who's been through the process and dish about the painful moments and the aha moments and their process is terrific. I love that. But if I could sit with them, that would be glorious.
Right. And finally, any advice for future writers?
Don't stop. It's frustrating and maddening and exhausting. Don't stop. Give yourself breaks. Give yourself positive pep talks. Remind yourself that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And every story has been told before. This is something that I have to remind myself of. There is nothing, like, there are original takes and there are original interpretations of characters, but we like to hash and rehash tropes and stereotypes and legends and mythologies and patterns, because as human beings, we keep peeling back the layers to discover more and more truths. So if it feels like, oh, somebody else has already done this, I shouldn't do this. No, you should do this because your perspective is unique and you have something to offer. So I've had a lot of students who they feel frustrated because they can't come up with something new and different, and they have to understand that their perspective is new and different. They're special. Everybody has something to offer. And I would say too, advice my grandmother gave me, because she wrote a little bit, don't throw anything away, don't delete anything, keep everything. Keep notebooks, keep shreds, like everything. If you jot it down on a sticky note, keep that sticky note. Don't get rid of anything. And it's both practical and it's also wishful, because on the practical side, if somebody ever claims that they wrote the thing that you wrote, if you have a ton of scraps of paper, that shows that you wrote it. It's evidence of your process.
Right.
But it's also the wishful part that everything that you write could be used in something else. Even if, like, I've written several pieces for that dollhouse story. I don't know if I'll use them or not, but if I don't, maybe one of them will become its own thing one day. You don't know. Everything is a seed of an idea, so don't throw anything away.
Of course. And very important advice. And thank you so much for joining us. And Happy New Year to you and your family, and much prosperity and success with
Thank you, and to you.
the stars. Thank you. And thank you for joining me for another episode of Interview with Irene. I'll see you next time. Bye.